Welcome to the Inspired Caring podcast, where women who are in the messy middle of this big, beautiful, and sometimes chaotic life are finding inspiration and resources to care for themselves and figure out the best options to care for their aging loved ones. How we take care of ourselves today impacts how we are aging tomorrow. This podcast will help you feel seen, centered, and aligned. Everyone that relies on you is so lucky to have you in their life. The Inspired Caring podcast is your reminder that the number one person that counts on you is yourself. Congratulations on being here in this moment. Let's dive in and be inspired. Phil Galfond, welcome to the Inspired Caring podcast. I'm so happy to have you with us today.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Thank you for having me.
I am fascinated when people look outside of industry at things that feel completely unrelated and draw lessons from what other people are doing and how other industries run. And you are a 3-time World Series of Poker bracelet champion. Is that said correctly?
Yeah, close enough, yes.
Close enough. 3 times you have won the World Series of Poker.
So, well, that's a little further. So the World Series of Poker, there are a lot of World Series of Poker. A lot of people, when they think of the World Series of Poker, think of one main event, which is there's one every year. There are about 50-ish World Series of Poker events every year. And so I have won 3 of those general World Series of Poker tournaments, which is, not everybody's done that.
Yeah, like a lot of people have not done that.
Most people have not done that. But yeah,
most people have not done that.
But when a lot of viewers that are casual viewers will think of the main event, I've never won the main event, which is a lot of things to go well to win the main event. Something like 10,000 people usually will play.
Is that your white whale?
Honestly, no. I think I'm out of whales in poker. I've done what I wanted to do, and there are I imagine we might talk about risk and uncertainty a little bit. The thing about the World Series of Poker main event is you can play better than everybody in the world every year and never win it in a lifetime because just the nature of luck.
Oh my gosh. That feels frustrating to me. But
yeah, it's a great example of what is frustrating when you first, when I first started learning about and playing poker, and something that, I've grown accustomed to and kind of my way of thinking has shifted.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm so excited about this conversation, you and I have been friends for 3 years.
Correct.
I think it's been that long at
you
this
said that
point.
the right way. Yes.
Yes, that I did say the right way. And one day I woke up and I just was texting you about risk.
Yeah.
And how, as a poker player, you approach risk. And the way I'm connecting these dots is I had a dementia educator, influencer on the show, and I was asking her about a dementia village that is overseas that has had some success, where everyone within this entire village, it's a fully operational village, is living with a dementia or is a team member. And I asked if she thought that would be successful in the United States. And she said no, because in the United States, we don't have the same relationship with risk that that country has. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the other reason, just as we're having this conversation, I was thinking about family caregivers and how we want to bubble wrap our people sometimes, or we get really frustrated because the older adults in our lives are refusing to stop driving, or not being on, they're still going up on ladders, and we just want to protect people. Yeah. And, neither Phil nor I are clinicians, and we are not giving anyone advice about how to operate within their family or what the right thing to do is. But I just wanted to have a dialogue around risk and what that could look like for people. And yeah, so maybe let's just go back a little bit to just your history and what led you to be in the poker playing business.
Yeah. I actually played cards with friends a lot growing up. So in my teenage years, that was what my group of friends did to hang out
Mhm.
more than anything else. And we played for fun, and nobody was any good. Nobody took it serious. I mean, we tried to win, but there's very much, I guess, fast forwarding a little bit, the time that I really learned to play poker, there was a flip that was switched, a switch that was flipped. I always say that the wrong way. So one of those was the right way.
Yeah.
There was something that changed where I went from thinking non-strategically to thinking strategically once I was introduced to the elements of the game. But anyway, I played for fun. When I was in college, one of my friends that I used to play with back home, I was 18. As was he won a tournament online. This was 2002, 2003 probably, and which was the poker boom. This
Mm-hmm.
Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker. He was an accountant, not a professional, and it was on ESPN, and it was a big deal. And everybody saw themselves like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. And poker blew up. And anyway, my friend won a tournament online for $35,000, and so this became the talk of all of our friends. And he happened to reach out to me. He reached out to me specifically, and he said, Phil, I picked up some books and have been studying how to play poker. I think you'd be really good at this if you tried. And I enjoyed gambling. He didn't have to twist my arm. And that was the beginning.
And so you were how old at the time?
I was 19 when I really started playing. And I bought a couple of books and started learning, and I started playing online with a $50 deposit. And um, I don't want to extend the story too long. It's not super interesting, but then I started eventually winning and getting serious about it. I had a job that I like while I was in college that I quit to, this was my job on the side, basically. And I didn't have intentions of going pro necessarily, but then it just kind of grew from there. And I had more and more success to the point where I wasn't taking school very seriously because I was making a lot of money playing poker. And when I was 21, I dropped out and started playing full time.
I think, the first thing that's notable to me is I think you said that it was like around 2004.
Mhm.
I mean, the internet was like barely invented.
Yeah. Yeah, online poker had only started a couple years before that, I believe, maybe a few years, but not long. And so it was a great time to get into the game because nobody knew what they were doing. And so if you took it seriously, you could have a big leg up on the competition.
Yeah. And I think the second thing that jumps out to me is, $50 for a 19-year-old still feels like a significant amount of money. I mean, your friend who won $35,000, that's like all the money. That's
That's
like,
all the money. Yes.
that is, I am rich.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No.
But so over time, it sounds like the bets got bigger.
Yes, pretty quickly. By the time I was, let's see, I mean, I'm trying to remember, like within a year and a half, $50 was 100,000, and in another year and a half, it was 1 million. So it happened very fast. That because I mean, I took on a little bit too much risk. Well, maybe not. We could debate that. I was very comfortable with risk from the beginning, a little too comfortable with risk, probably for my own good. And I saw a lot of opportunity. And to me, it is a luxury in poker and probably in certain other areas when you don't really understand the real world value of money.
Mm.
So to me, obviously I wasn't clueless. I knew that this was real money, but to me, I was playing a video game and these were points and I was moving up to the next boss and the next boss and beating the next level. And so there's not, and all my friends around, like all my friends are broke. So I'm not afraid of, oh my gosh, if I lose this money, I'm going to be destitute and it's going to be terrible. So, I had no fear at that point, and that helped.
Yeah. How would you define risk? Because I think that's something that maybe as we're thinking about how different people approach it, maybe we also have different definitions. So I'm curious how you would even define it.
I let's see if I can figure out how I define it. I don't know how I define it. The one thing I think that what I will say is one way that I see the world differently than I think the average person is that I see risk in every decision we make every day. And I view the things like, I think we're making bets all the time, and people don't like to think of it that way. But really, anytime you make a decision, whether am I going to drive to work today or bike to work? You are trying to make a guess. I mean, in that scenario, maybe you're like, well, I'm weighing the health benefits versus the time it takes. Or it's, do I take this route or do I take this route? There might be traffic there. You don't know the exact outcome. You don't know what the exact outcome is going to be. And so you're giving it your best shot at a decision that you think will lead to the outcome you want, but you don't know what'll happen. And that is a bet. That is taking risk. And obviously, there are many decisions where we're not risking that much. It's not scary. But I think that the challenge that people run into when they're navigating risk of any real kind is, or just making decisions in general, whether they see that they're navigating risk or not, is that many people want to, if they think long enough about it, if they find the right solution, if they talk to enough people, if they just figure out the right answer, they'll have control or certainty. And that's an illusion.
Ooh, that's juicy because I think especially you're a dad, I'm a mom, so we're trying to help other people navigate decisions. I've cared for older adults. So I think that's a really powerful statement that certainty is an illusion.
You can't know what's going to happen with any. And so when you were talking about, wanting to bubble wrap people, any amount of control. So the next time I leave my house and drive somewhere, I'm taking a risk. It's a very small risk that I'm going to get into a car accident, God forbid, but I can't know what's going to happen. And so whether we realize it or not, we're doing a risk reward analysis of, okay, do I go drive to the grocery store and have a, 1 in 3 million chance of I don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Get it's something bad happening to me versus the tiny reward of getting my groceries instead of, paying more to get them delivered or whatever the actual thing is. We are these are risk reward decisions that we're making all the time. It's just usually not conscious.
And like what college you go to.
Yes, that's the one that I remember I shared with you as an example and I think it's a powerful example because, I mean, it is one that people think a lot about, but if you look back now as adults, as non-20-year-old adults, you look back at your life. Most people can look back at their life and say like that, what they did after high school, whether it's college or something else, led to, had they gone somewhere else, they might have had a completely different life with a completely different partner and different kids and a different job and different income level. And so in essence, at that point, you're making a decision that dramatically shapes the rest of your life. And yet, in terms of expected outcome, on average, this is expected value we talk about in gambling, a lot of the decisions are equally good. And it's just, you don't know what's going to happen. And so you could look back. I mean, fortunately, I think most 18-year-olds don't sit there paralyzed like, oh my gosh, if I pick the wrong college, what if I never meet my husband that was going to be at that college? And what if I choose the wrong major and I never connect with my lifelong best friend that introduces me to her boss, and then I get a job at this company? And if they did think that way, it'd be really almost impossible to make a decision. But if they did think that way, I would tell them that, you know, there's no way to predict what'll happen. And the going to this school versus taking time off and doing whatever are on average probably going to lead to similar outcomes. If it feels like a close decision to you, it's probably because the average outcome in terms of quality is pretty similar.
Mhm.
And it can be very different, a different path, but still similar in quality. And then there's luck involved, right? You can go to that chance meeting of you and that friend who then led to your career. There's no way to predict that would have happened at Penn State versus what, you know, like there's just no way to know.
Yeah. I do think that's a very unique way to approach risk, is the acknowledgement that you are, with every little decision, there's an element of risk potentially involved with it. I asked you the question, but I don't know what my answer is. What I do know is when I hear the word risk, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like there's a sense of discomfort. Um, and I think my brain, and you're a coach, so, and a teacher, so I think my brain goes to bad outcomes, like immediately when I think of, and it's not with like the small decisions, like should we make dinner or get takeout? To be honest with you, when I moved from Kansas City to Omaha, I said to my husband, because you know me, I'm a little like spiritual, universe driven. I said out loud, what if something bad happens to one of our kids because we made the decision to move to Omaha? And he was like, holy Lord, please, you, you cannot think that way.
Yeah.
Like we need to detach from that a little bit. But I think in general, just with definitions of risk for a lot of people, it's like there's always this worst case scenario. Does that
Yeah.
come up for you?
I mean, yes. So, I mean, I think risk is what most people's definition is bad. You'd look at a risk and reward decision. Reward is the good part, risk is the bad part.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think it's okay that it has a negative association in that way. But it really is. So, like, I would phrase it more like I would replace the word with uncertainty or chance or luck.
Mm.
But to your decision, or what you just said, I think that's the number one. To get more comfortable with risk, I think it's really important to understand that certain things, to not blame yourself for things that are not your fault. And so you don't know what would have happened had you chosen to move somewhere different or had not moved. You might have avoided for your kids a terrible outcome, and you'll never know that.
Mm.
And even if that's true, you also shouldn't take credit for that because it's just luck, right? If you were sitting there thinking, okay, you know, if I'm sitting there for my son and thinking, actually, I'll just use this example with my son because I was writing about this recently, and I think it's the perfect example of. So I had taken him out one day after school. My wife was busy, and it was just going to be a Father Sunday, and I picked him up, and we went and got ice cream, and we were leaving the ice cream place. I opened the door. He's 5 at the time. I open the door. It's in like a shopping center. And I open the door. We start walking outside. I get a text. I look at my phone. And like the next thing I know, he's gone. He's bolted into the parking lot. And, you know, my stomach drops. And I look out there and I see him. He's just like one. And I sprint out there and I say, I yell. I don't really know how to yell, but I try to yell for him to stop. And I run across and I get down like with him. And I said, Spencer, you can't do that. You can't run into the parking lot. That's really dangerous. And he said, but I looked and there were no cars. And I said, yeah, but you're 5 and you might not be able to see all the cars. And it's just, you know, something really bad could happen. You could get really hurt. And then he said, but I didn't.
Mm.
And that is like that, but I didn't, those three words, that's the logic that you can see is flawed in a 5-year-old, but it's exactly the logic you're fearing when you blame yourself for an outcome that was out of your control. Like the fact that he didn't get hurt didn't mean it was a good decision to run into the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And in science, they call this outcome bias. In poker, a lot of times we call it being results oriented. Annie Duke, who's a poker player that wrote a book, she called this resulting. And it's basically judging your decision by the outcome. And in games of chance, which is everything in the world, when you judge your decisions by your outcome, especially when that outcome was very unpredictable or largely out of your control, not only do you kind of misjudge yourself in the moment, but that the fact that you're going to criticize yourself and judge yourself harshly based on the outcome makes it tough to make the decision in the first place. It leads to all the fear. And if you know that instead, I can't control the outcome, I can do my best. I can make the best decision I can in the moment. And that's really all I can ask of myself. That's all I'm capable of. And then what happens is not my fault, good or bad. Sure, decisions, it doesn't mean decisions are worth nothing. It doesn't mean that, just, okay, we can't control the outcome, so pick anything. No, you try to make the best decision you can with the information you have at the time. And sometimes it will be a good decision and have a good outcome. Sometimes it'll be a bad decision, have a bad outcome, but sometimes it'll be a good decision that had an unlucky bad outcome, or a bad decision that had a lucky good outcome. And I think that really accepting that, which is really hard to do without playing millions of hands of poker and seeing it happen again and again and having it drilled into your head. But really accepting that is how you can break free of that. I think it's fear of choosing the wrong thing and it leading to something catastrophic or even, minorly bad as well.
Yeah, that just all really resonates with me. Something that I share frequently with clients is we're just all operating at the speed of information. And I think what you just articulated is like the 10x version of what I'm trying to share with people. Do you think there's a few things that are coming to my mind? One is I'm just imagining you with cards in your hand, like having to make game time decisions based on the information that you have. So do you feel like you can become desensitized to risk? I mean, the bets that you were betting kept getting bigger and bigger. Like, was there discomfort as bigger decisions were being made?
Yes. And yes, every time I was playing bigger, and this happens a lot in tournaments, especially because in tournaments, you can buy into a tournament for, let's say, $1,000, but in a large tournament, if you get to the end, every decision is worth tens of thousands of dollars. So you can kind of get in over your head in terms of the stakes you're playing for very easily. But even if you just kind of gradually, yes, at first it's scarier and you do become, or in my experience and a lot of other players, you become desensitized. But I think the thing that I think one of my biggest strengths as a player is my ability to guess. And I'll try to sum up what I mean by that, which is there are kind of mathematically correct ways to play in theory. But because no human is capable of always playing perfectly, your opponents will leave opportunities to do something better, for you to do something better than the best theoretical play, to take advantage of the mistakes that they're making. When you do that, you risk being wrong and making a big blunder. But I know from many years of doing this that on average, like sometimes I make a big guess and it's a huge mistake and I lose a bunch of money. It's a big blunder. And I could look to somebody watching, I'll look foolish. More often than not, when I make a big guess, it works in my favor. And I had to learn that being wrong is not just like, okay, I want to avoid being wrong. And sometimes I will be, but I really want to avoid it. It's no, like being wrong is it's almost part of being right. Like, if I'm going to guess at all, I'm guaranteed to be wrong. I'm going to guess wrong sometimes. I can't guess right every time. And so let's say my skill at guessing is 70-30. 70% of the time I make a good guess, 30% of the time I make a bad guess. I could never guess and just try to play theoretically correct and leave a lot of money on the table, but never look foolish. Or I could trust myself to guess and know that it guarantees I'm going to be wrong and make mistakes. It guarantees it. But more often than not, I'm going to make up for it by making plays that are really good and benefit me a lot. And it took, I think, what people, at least in poker, it takes them, well, they have two hangups. One is it takes them a while to trust themselves. And then the other is they fear judgment of looking foolish, which is a separate issue that we can all relate to, I think, as well. But I think in life, look, who when you're deciding where to move, who's going to know better than you? Like, whose guess is going to be better than yours about what life you want to live and where you want to be? And you can't know what's going to happen. You might be wrong because you might be thinking, oh, if I move here, there'll be this opportunity and this opportunity, and I'll see these friends all the time. And then you might go there and you might never see those friends for whatever reason, and you might not have so you might actually literally be wrong, not just unlucky. But still, whose guess would have been better than yours? And you just make the best guess that you can. And then what happens. And I think part of trusting yourself is also trusting yourself to handle the bad outcomes. So when you've made decisions or things have just happened in the past that haven't gone well, how have you handled it? What do you do next? And building that trust in yourself is really helpful as well.
And it feels like that's just something that does happen over time. And it does require, I believe, a little bit of reflection of where have I made decisions that did go right or in my favor or had a positive outcome? Because I think sometimes it's very easy for our brains to just really focus on what is not going well.
Yes. And I think some people do some people think, they want to think they can do no wrong. And so they have selective memory in the other way. And they look at they work at a company and they're like, no, but when I did this, this, and this, it helped the company. And they forget about the times it didn't. But yeah, most people are remembering the negatives and hanging on to those. And I guess I want to bring it back to what you were talking about earlier with, how much risk do we let our loved ones take, or if they're in our care. There's not going to be a wrong or right answer. And I think there is an element of, where am I trying to go with this? There's an element of like how we are going to feel if we are going to have regrets, and if other people will too. I'll give another example, which is we moved into a new house recently, and our old house is still for sale. And we were in a, long story short, we were in a negotiation for the old house. And I felt pretty strongly that the right decision was to play hardball. And my wife did not. And we talked about it, and I still was very confident that the highest expected value decision was to play hardball, but it carried more risk. But I also had to factor in that if we went my way and it didn't work, she would be upset about it. And so, I decided to forego the little bit of what I perceived as expected value gain, because I knew that the actual results would involve conflict or less happiness. And it does factor in. And so I would imagine when you're making these decisions, it's not only you that, as a caretaker, there are often other people involved. And yeah, it's not as simple as, well, I'm sure it's very complex beyond what I know, I'm sure.
Well, you're right. Like every decision that we're making is because we want to feel a desired certain outcome. So, for example, a lot of people are very eager for their older family members to move into senior living
Hmm.
because in their minds, it's going to solve a lot of problems. And sometimes that's true. And in their mind, it gives them peace of mind to know that they've done due diligence, they have led them the right way to do the best thing for them,
Hmm.
because that's what they believe as a family member is best. And I would say a lot of the time, just having worked in only two buildings, I mean, there's thousands of buildings around the country, the world, but most of the time, in my experience, people as they adjust and um, make friends and create a community and life for themselves, I do believe family members can pat themselves on the back to say, okay, it did work out. Also, there's also a lot of frustrations that people have. Um, every solution comes with a new set of problems.
Yeah. So,
So,
so I would imagine then people, to them, that feels like the lower risk option, putting them in a care
having someone
facility.
move feels
Yeah.
lower risk than having them stay home
Yeah.
because
And
potentially we've exceeded the care that can be delivered in a home environment, and we need more nursing oversight or there's safety issues. Um,
is
but I
there
really,
also a fear? Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, go
Continue.
ahead.
Okay. Is there also a fear that, you know, if under my care something happens, like I messed up, if it's under their, like I can't be to blame if something bad happens under their care.
I mean, I think that is a legitimate undercurrent of I'm so afraid that if they're still at home and something goes wrong, catastrophically wrong, potentially, um, yeah, that's a heavy weight to carry for the remainder of your life.
Yeah.
That being said, transferring the risk to the team within the building, you've got more people. There's more people involved. There's more eyes, there's more ears, there's more opportunities for engagement. So it does to me, from the lenses that I view the world, it does feel like it helps lower the risk for someone's aging journey to make that transition and move. But you're right, it's that person wants to feel a certain way and we want them to adjust quickly so that we can feel good about
Yeah.
having facilitated the move.
Yeah. And I know very little about what is right and wrong for, in situations like this, or obviously it's case by case. But I would imagine that if they're making it, I mean, if you're making it from a place of, if something goes wrong here, I'm never going to forgive myself.
Mm.
That's making it from a place of scarcity and not really being clear headed about it. And it's exactly what I was talking about earlier, which is if you can't forgive yourself, if you did your best and something bad happened, then yeah, you limit your ability to make good decisions.
Yeah, we become paralyzed. And I feel like delaying decisions delays care for
Yeah.
people. Um,
Yes. Indecision is decision.
mhm.
Yeah.
So, how much money have you lost in a hand?
Um, you know what? I don't know in an individual hand. The most I've lost in a day, um, is a lot.
I don't know how much of this is like public information. And
It's no, it's public. The most I've
okay.
lost in a day is 1.1 million.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so with making mistakes, how did you sleep that night?
One good thing about understanding luck in poker is that no matter how bad I like no matter how badly I played that day, I was not supposed to lose 1.1 million. I had to have gotten unlucky also. Even if I played really badly, to lose that much at the stakes I was playing, I had to be very unlucky. And similarly, if I would have made 1.1 million that day, no matter how well I played, I would have had to have been lucky. So like short term, in the long run in poker, skill dominates luck. In an individual day, luck dominates skill. And
how do we define luck?
Well,
and again, I put you on the spot with these questions.
Okay.
I only have Oprah's version of what luck is, but I don't.
Okay. In poker, there's very clear, like in gambling, and actually just in statistics, there are clear definitions of like, and we don't have to do the math because I can't even do it on the fly anyway, but you have like your expected value, and then you have standard deviation. And so I think, so what that means, I'll just make up a number. Let's say that you're expected to win $1,000 a day with a standard deviation of $3,000. What that means is, I think it's something like 70% of the time it falls within that, the real result falls within one standard deviation, which means that every day you're going to 70% of the time you'll either do something between lose 2,000 and win 4,000. And then as you get like 3 standard deviations away, then you get to like covers 95, 96, 97% of cases. And but what I'm saying is your expected value is just the plus 1,000. And then anything outside of that is luck in one direction or the other. And there are measures of how strong the like how unlucky or lucky you are likely to get, I guess, is what standard deviation is. When you're making life decisions or business decisions, it's not that clean. There aren't those clear definitions. And also there's a lot of tail risk. So when you're talking about something terrible happening to a loved one, 99 point whatever percent of the time, that's not going to happen. But there is that on in the worst, the most unlucky case, something catastrophic can happen, which is kind of different, I guess.
So it sounds like we have skill. There's this element of just being human and making mistakes. And then with luck, with all of these things, it comes back to just not beating ourselves up.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's easy sometimes it's helpful to think of other people. And I think actually I'm still better at this than average because of my poker playing background. But for example, like even when, I don't remember the details, but I had a member of my team send out send out some email that was completely wrong. And like it ended up being like a big mistake. It was a kind of big problem for us. And that was not necessarily bad luck, right? It was a mistake. There's a difference between mistake and bad luck. But even in that, the way I view it is when I hire somebody, I'm investing in them, and I'm investing in them at their worst, and I'm investing in them at their best. And I'm investing in just like I trust myself, that sometimes I'll make big mistakes and other times I'll make great decisions. I'm making the bet that more often than not, this person's going to do good work and make good decisions and not make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, I don't get upset unless I think it was, a failure of effort, really, like not caring. And I know that's not what it was. And so it's like mistakes are part of the outcome. I have a mentor of mine likes to say, like, and this is a very enlightened take, and he actually means it. I'm not quite there yet, but like, he's like, why would you get mad when a flight is delayed? It's one of the main things that flights do, right? They're either on time or they get delayed. Those are the only things that they get canceled. So why would you be surprised by a flight getting delayed? It's one of the main things that flights do. And I can still get frustrated by a delayed flight, but I think the logic still applies, which is people make mistakes. And it's part of what Like if I never ever made a mistake, then maybe I could sit there and judge this person for the time that he made a mistake. But it's just part of life. It's part of work. It's part of life. And so forgiving yourself. There's forgiving yourself for mistakes, and then forgiving yourself for whether or not you know if you made a mistake, just the outcome being out of your control, which a lot of outcomes are.
Oh, so many. So many outcomes are out of our control.
Mhm.
I mean, we're just doing the best we can here, folks.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Can I ask, at the beginning, you mentioned the facility overseas and how we wouldn't have the appetite for risk in the US. And can you expand on that?
sure. Um, the community is called Hogavik, and there is a door, and it's like many city blocks, and it's apartments and grocery store, and um, I believe even like some cobblestone sidewalk, things that would render us to be unsteady on our feet. And there are team members there, but people are moving about constantly this community,
Mhm.
in and out, up and down elevators and stairs, and as I know it to be. And so there is potential for, within the community, people getting lost, confusion, potentially people falling. Everybody there is living with a dementia.
Mhm.
Um, and I think in the States, we get very hung up on our staffing ratios and how many eyes are on people. And um, so that was her hot take, was that, there are things that could potentially happen, uh, like
I
maybe
would
someone.
be better on the whole if we were comfortable with risk. I think probably also in America, we sue people more often.
That's exactly it. We're too
Yeah.
litigious.
Yeah.
So, if there's a stove in a community space where they have art projects or something like that, yeah, we're very litigious here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's unfortunate, the discomfort with risk, because I think it leads to suboptimal decisions kind of everywhere. Like, if you're at a company where you're not, like, if you take a chance on something that you think is a good idea, but kind of outside the box, and it goes really well, you're not rewarded that much. But if it goes poorly, you're punished. Then you're not incentivized to do what you think is best. You're incentivized to take as little risk as possible. And so then you have a team of employees not trying to do what they think is best, but just trying to cover their asses. And
Mhm.
that's what you get is not their best, but their most careful, which maybe that's what you want for your company. I'm not, not right or wrong necessarily, but I do think that yeah, if you can trust yourself and or those around you to take risks, but part of that is being okay with the outcomes and being okay with sometimes the risks don't work because you expect that more often than that they do work out. Um, yeah,
The
it's hard.
example of that it is hard, that immediately comes to mind is J.C. Penney. And I don't know if you've ever been inside of a J.C. Penney's, but
It's been a while.
yeah, there's one down the street in the little shopping center by my home. And they had their mode of operation were coupons, 20%, whatever, all these coupons. And they hired someone at headquarters that shifted the model to, we're just making everything cheap and a flat price.
Mhm.
$5, $20, we're just going to make it cheaper and charge a flat price. And it was like an epic fail,
Yeah.
an epic disaster, because people want to feel like they're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
People want to, have that coupon in hand or on their phone and feel like they're getting something.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing about it is, and maybe I don't know. I feel like I could have predicted that, so maybe that wasn't a great decision. However, the person making the decision knows more than me about the topic. And the kind of nice thing about, so let's say they tried that and it didn't work out. They can revert. And let's say they tried it and it went well. Well, now they have a better solution. So one of the things that, I mean, a lot of very successful people in business will tell you is fail fast. It's like you try things and you fail and then you adjust. And it's that comfort with maybe something will go wrong. But if the person that makes that change then gets fired as soon as it goes poorly, you're not going to get people taking those chances.
Yeah, it's not worth it. I mean, my husband at one of his companies had 4 directors in 5 years, and they kept trying to promote him into that role.
Oh, yeah. It's like, no, thank you. Yeah.
He said, not a chance. You fired the last 4 people.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Okay, I want to tie this kind of back to the JCPenney thing. This may backfire and I may end up having to cut this out of the episode, but
that's fine.
I'm thinking about, senior living is expensive, Phil. It's very expensive. Like there is a monthly rate and it varies depending on how much assistance someone needs. And then whether they're in assisted living or nursing home care. Now, home care is also very expensive. Like to have someone coming into your home 24/7, I mean, that's going to run $25,000 to $30,000 a month. Yeah. And so senior living can be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a month. And I think that's something that I have been striving to help families with is, there's this expectation of perfection because it is so expensive. And it is expensive. I mean, there's real estate, it's keeping the lights on, it's everything that pours into. And I mean, let's not forget, people are making money.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
They are making money at this. But so I think just when we're thinking about, how much something costs and expectations of what we're getting out of it, and people are going to make mistakes. How do we, I keep trying to equate the cost to value instead of, we're used to kind of like an hourly rate.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can pick up what I'm laying down here, but just what your thoughts are around that.
Sort of. So at the beginning, it sounds like for a lot of people, you're finding they are very judgmental and unforgiving of care facilities when things are not perfect because they're paying in objective terms a lot of money.
Yes.
And and then and what you're saying is yes, you're paying a lot of money objectively, but in comparison, like relatively to what you would be paying to do it in your house, it's actually cheap. It's maybe half price or less. And people and the costs for the facility are high. And people need to be paid to do their jobs, and it needs to be a business that runs. And so you're saying, well, yeah, I think that, I think this is less about risk and more about just kind of biases or fallacies in terms of yes, it's a lot of money, but compared to what? And but when somebody's paying a lot for something that is more than they pay for other things in their life, by comparison to, who knows whatever, their groceries and other services that, their housekeepers or whatever, right? This is a lot more expensive. Then they make the mistake of thinking that it is by definition high-end, exclusive, really, really, great. And so I think to me, it seems less about risk and more about just not thinking very hard about it, I guess. Like beyond the initial impression. And it makes sense why they have the initial impression that I'm paying a lot for this. It better be good. But you're paying a lot for it, and good. What does good mean? it's a lot of costs. They're spending a lot on what they're delivering to you.
Yeah. I think it's like also about our relationship with money.
Mhm.
Um, just how
Yeah.
we think about money and feel about money. And we know how hard maybe someone worked for that money. And everybody just has different relationships with money. I mean, you were talking about your $50 bets at the beginning of your
Mhm.
poker career. And I think back to decisions Todd and I were making as a young married couple. $50 was a lot of money
Yeah.
for a night out. Um, and we would discuss it and deliberate it. And now, and this absolutely, if as you're listening to this, I am speaking from a place of tremendous privilege. I mean, tremendous privilege. So I do recognize that. But it's interesting over time as his salary went up and my salary changed, your perspective about what is a hard line decision for us to discuss. It's gone from $50 to $500.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so it's interesting to think about our relationship with money. And you've won
And
a lot of money, you've lost a lot of money. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
well, I'd imagine everybody comes into this scenario with it varies person to person because they have different relationships with money. I mean, paying $15,000 a month, 15,000 is a lot for most everybody. It's not a cost that people are gonna not think about. But yeah, I would imagine it's different for everybody. I guess, no, beyond what I said, I don't have strong thoughts other than like, I don't know. It made me think of, I don't even know if this is helpful, but I had a similar, so I've run one retreat in my life. And, I, long story short, I received some criticism because it was expensive. And it was like, $10,000 per person, which is objectively, if you just look at the amount of money for a few days somewhere, it's expensive. But my cost per person was like $7,700. And that doesn't include any of my time. And it doesn't include, like, if one person cancels last minute, then there goes
Mhm.
the like profit margin entirely. And it just makes me think of the same thing, that people just look at, yeah, you got to look at what's behind the number and really think about, like, the thing about business is, if these care facilities could run at, the same service at 1/5 the cost, somebody would be undercutting the other ones. Like, the prices tend to get to where they quote unquote should be, to where somebody can run a viable business. And so for a lot of businesses like this, for a lot of services, the price is what it costs. Like,
Yeah.
it's what it should be.
Yeah. No, I think that's helpful as a way to just invite a different perspective. I mean, we're not changing anybody's mind here
Yeah.
today,
But no,
but
if they were ripping you off, then somebody would be undercutting them, and you would have and driving them out of business, probably.
hmm, such a good point. I think that's a really great point. Um, is there any other thing that you think is worth bringing up as to how your mind works and how you think as a high risk, high reward World Series champion poker player versus how the people generally think?
If you need to edit out my pausing and thinking, feel free to.
I appreciate a pause and
Okay.
thinking moment. I think we too often want to rush in.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, nothing that I haven't touched on, but I do just want to reiterate that even if, one person watching can change their perspective on, because it really can be not just lead you making bad decisions around risk, but if you do make a decision about how to care for someone in your family and it goes poorly, if you don't handle it well, it could ruin a life. It could ruin your life. Not forgiving yourself for that. And I guess to me, from my perspective and years of experience, like seeing the world through my lens, it's so crystal clear to me that very few of these scenarios would someone be worthy of blame. And I'm sure in almost all of them, people will blame themselves and others will blame them too. And I don't know how to hammer it home other than the example I gave with my son, where, because he was fine running into the parking lot doesn't mean that it was a good decision.
Mm.
And I know it's the opposite of what we're talking about in a way, but let's say you're driving, light turns red, like you're still like 5 seconds away and you blow through the red light. And then a comet falls from the sky on where you would have been if you stopped. And by blowing through the red light, you saved your life. Was that a good decision? I would say no. I would say it was a bad decision. You took on more risk. You put your life more at risk, but you got very lucky. And the same could be true the other way, that if the person stopped at the red light and the comet fell on them, that's kind of the scenario I'm talking about, where people are doing the best they can and still sometimes something goes wrong. And you can't blame yourself for like the comet example is so clear because an act of God, it feels like very clear that that's not your fault, but it's kind of the same thing in a lot of these scenarios where it's so often out of your control, what actually ends up happening. And so I know I'm repeating myself, but if anybody could start to get comfortable with the idea that they are not to blame for something out of their control, even if a different decision might have avoided that. I just think it's a way that a lot of people think, and it's not accurate. Like you can't be, it's not your fault that something unpredictable and out of your control happened. Or even if it was one predictable thing that could have happened, like a flight being delayed, the bad thing could have happened if you chose the other path. And maybe a worse thing could have happened if you chose the other path, and you don't get to know.
Yeah. I think that is a beautiful takeaway and very much worth repeating. I think very frequently in caregiving scenarios, we have guilt, resentment, regret. And we're just, if there was such a thing as a three-sided coin, we're just rolling that three-sided dice. Okay, I have two questions left for you. One is around ego and failing publicly, because I think that is something that people do struggle with. And my world is you're making big decisions, and maybe your community or your culture or your faith community isn't necessarily agreeing with those decisions. And then the other question is much lighter. It's what's inspiring you, like what's listening to you, or what are you listening to lately? So let's start with like the ego one.
It's a really tough thing. I mean, I don't know many people who are not who are very comfortable failing publicly. And I will say part of it. So there are a lot of areas where I'm very uncomfortable failing publicly. One area where I'm not is playing a poker hand. And it's because I just know with all my heart that I'm good at it, and that on average I make good decisions. And so if I make a bad decision and somebody wants to tell me that I played terribly, I just don't care. Like, it's not that I don't care. Like, I generally do care what people say. I give it weight, but my knowing of my ability is at this point in that area unshakable, to the point where no, I'm not the best poker player in the world. I'm not going to do everything perfectly every time, but I know that I'm really good. And I know that it, when I make a mistake, it doesn't make me a bad person or make me stupid or anything like that. In other areas where I'm less sure of myself, have some more imposter syndrome, it's a lot easier to feel scared. And so the only way that I've seen, or the best way I've seen to conquer that is to have proven to yourself, and or however you do it, believe in yourself. And it could be like you were saying earlier, reminding yourself of the times that you have done well, reminding yourself of the times that you figured something out that other people wouldn't see, the decisions that you made, or the times you've really helped people around you, or what have you, depending on your line of work. I think that's probably the best you can do.
Oof, I like unshakable. That word keeps ringing for me. And I think that so many families on this journey are questioning everything. They're just questioning every move, even if it has proven results or even if they know it's the right thing. And I think for anyone listening, if just go back and re-listen to Phil in that response a few more times, because um, he shared, he knows with all his heart that, I mean, you came to play, you did it. You
Yeah.
did your best. Yeah.
And I think in those cases, like, yeah, the people making decisions for their family, they haven't spent their whole lives generally learning about medical care and all of these other things. But, who would they rather have making the decision? Who would their loved one rather have making the decision than them?
Mm.
I think they are the most qualified to make the decision for that person. I think that in a lot of cases, that's, you're not going to be perfect, but that's as good as it's going to get. The best poker players in the world aren't perfect. They would lose to a computer. Computer can play perfectly. Every human would lose to a computer. And it doesn't matter. I could study 24 hours a day for the rest of my life. I can't beat a computer. I will never be perfect, but I'm very good. And so perfection is not the right, measuring stick. And if you're, yeah, if you're making decisions for a loved one, presumably, your intent and your heart, and how hard you're trying and how much you care about them and what you would do for them. And what more can you ask of somebody in that spot?
Oh, that's so good. That is so, so good. Um, you've inspired me today, and Phil being with us today is literally out of just the graciousness and generosity of his heart, because you are a poker player and you have run it once, a membership for poker players. So don't reach out to Phil about coaching on senior living or senior care.
Yeah.
Um, really, this was just a gift to me and to the listeners, because which is just so generous, because I wanted to pick your brain about risk. So
Well,
thank you.
you're welcome. I think we're friends. You're overstating the level of sacrifice. I've enjoyed talking to you, as always.
Well, I will put a link to Run It Once, Phil's website, where you can check out his membership if you are a poker player, because I know there are caregivers who are up late at night. You might be playing online poker, so this may be exactly what you're looking for.
Play it a little bit better. Yeah.
You could play it a little bit better. Yeah. So thank you so much, Phil. I appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for sharing time with Inspired Caring this week. I have a couple of favors to ask of you. The first is, if this episode resonated with you, please leave a review. When you leave a rating and a review, it helps boost the algorithms so that the podcast platform that you use will push it out to more people. The other thing is, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone. We have so many millions of people in this country who are really struggling with the caregiving journey. and looking for different resources. So by sharing this episode, I know that you will be touching their heart, and it lets them know that you're thinking of them as well. Thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you and being with you next time.